I'd like to hand over to Matthew to lead us through this next session with our past award winners from the Training Awards. Thanks, Matthew.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for your engagement across today's VET in School forums. And it's been lovely to really think about the future that is VET in schools and the potentials that exist there for all of our students to thrive and to flourish, regardless of the pathways that they choose or that are right for them. And in reflecting on what we've heard today, we've been talking about what lies ahead. And I'd like to introduce four remarkable young women who are that very future and the product of the excellent work that our VET teachers and our VET programs achieve in our schools, regardless of their sector. And so I'll introduce each of our participants this afternoon, and we'll have a bit of an open conversation about the role of VET training in their growth and development and how that has really impacted their current circumstance. And looking particularly at the importance of their experience. So this afternoon I'd like to introduce Bridie Searle. After leaving the Hunter Valley, Bridie pursued a traineeship and found herself in defence and maritime project management. She indicates that she was very lucky to be working alongside men and women of 40 years' experience and reflected particularly on the skills that they bring to the table as being unparalleled and supporting her immensely. And again, coming back to what was just said about the importance of that workplace training. Upon the early completion of her traineeship, Bridie secured a full-time role with Thales, as well as contributing to initiatives within the Department of Education. And with a strong interest in regional employment opportunities, Bridie sees herself as an advocate in that space and hopes to inspire people in regional and rural areas. Could you please welcome Bridie? And secondly, I'd like to introduce Casey Fox. Casey, let's give the audience a bit of a wave. Thank you. Casey is an inspiring and engaging VET educator and an advocate of lifelong learning. Since being named as New South Wales Vocational Student of the Year, Casey has taken on teaching roles within TAFE New South Wales and Community Colleges Australia. Alongside teaching, Casey champions the Educational Pathways program, informing high school students on the opportunities that VET can provide to kickstart their career through pathways, including work placement, VET IS and SBAT programs. Through her work as a VET ambassador and teaching at the TAE, Casey is also driven to encourage industry experts to return to the classroom and become part of a strong VET workforce to shape Australia's skilled future. Could we please welcome Casey? And next we have Stella. Stella is a young woman who's passionate about pathways, education and opportunities in her community. She completed Certificate 3 in Health Service Assistance during her Year 11 and 12 studies and fell in love with the industry of healthcare. She is now studying a Diploma of Nursing at TAFE New South Wales. In 2022, she won the VET in School Student of the Year for New South Wales and has remained a proud VET ambassador since. Stella is passionate about educating young people about their options and an alternative way of learning in the classroom to get ahead not only with their education, but first and foremostly with their passion. Welcome, Stella. And last but certainly by any means not least, we have Megan Cox, currently working as an HR coordinator at Foxtel Group. Previously, she completed a traineeship at PricewaterhouseCoopers Australia, where she worked in cybersecurity and digital trust and earned a Cert 4 and Diploma of IT from TAFE New South Wales. In 2021, Megan was awarded Trainee of the Year at both the Australian Training Awards and the New South Wales Training Awards. She proudly serves as an ambassador for vocational education and training in New South Wales through the Educational Pathways program and as a member of the Australian VET alumni. Could we please all welcome Megan Cox? Thank you very much. So in keeping with this particular panel, we're going to have a bit of a wide-ranging conversation. I think it's important that as we conclude the day, we really reflect on the experience of our young people in VET. We've heard a lot about what VET means from a practice standpoint, from a policy standpoint, and a cross-sectoral standpoint, but how does it actually impact the very individuals whom we are seeking to enhance it. So what I'd like to do is we'll move down the panel with a few questions, and we'll let the conversation take us in a few different directions. But first, if we could start just by telling us a little bit about your training award, but also about what you see as that really strong and compelling part of vet training for students in schools.
So my name is Bridie, Searle. Thank you for the intro there. And I was privileged enough to win the 2023 Australian Trainee of the Year. So I completed a Certificate 4 in Project Management Practice, and I currently work in the defence and maritime industry. Now, that's a very demanding industry and one that I never thought I would end up in. Especially for someone who used to have a bit of interest in defence but didn't think that I was able to get into defence without actually being in the Defence Force. Now, as you said before, I'm from the Hunter Valley, and when I was living in the Hunter Valley, I was really struggling to find opportunities within the vet sector. So I've always chosen vet. A lot of people fall into it. However, I always chose it. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I knew that the university pathway wasn't something that I was particularly interested in. So I had to look a little bit further, and I ended up in Sydney completing my traineeship. And moving to Sydney and completing that traineeship really opened me up to the opportunities that vet provides. And now I'm really proud to be in a space where I can not only inspire young people, but also older people that are job seekers or people that are trying to transition into different industries. And not only inspiring my friends and my family, but colleagues in the wider community as well.
And just, Bridie, from your experience, tell us a little bit about the advantages of vet for you. You said to us that you chose that pathway and you had that really clear understanding of where you were heading. What was it about the vet program or the training program that really connected with you and your direction? Some of the features of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a hands-on learner, which we see with so many of our vet students amongst high school students, I really struggled with complete classroom-based learning. It wasn't something that gelled well with me. I did seem to be that disengaged kid, although I wasn't the rat bag that was making noise at the back of the classroom. I was definitely there twiddling my thumbs. Like I wasn't engaged. I wasn't interested in what they were teaching me because I knew there was something else out there. So the unmatched program that vet provides, where you can earn and learn, was massive for me, and it was something that I always was striving towards because vet put food on the table for me as a kid, so I always saw the importance in apprenticeships and traineeships. All my family have gone down that pathway, and I felt inspired by their success and by the fact that my entire livelihood was built off vet to continue down that pathway as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bridie.
My name is Stella. Hello, everyone. So I did Cert 3 in Health Service Assistance when I was in Year 11 and 12. And opposite, I guess I didn't necessarily always choose vet. I went to a languages high school where vet actually wasn't really encouraged. It wasn't spoken about. I kind of had to do that on my own. Like I was even discouraged by teachers that if it wasn't something I was 100% sure of, not even to take that step and do the vet course. However, it has actually changed my life, where I have been put into spaces where I never thought I would be put into, for this, for example. So I won the Vet and School Student of the Year for New South Wales for 2022, and one of my passions, I guess you could say, is because I didn't get that experience of knowing what vet was, what an SBAT was. I didn't know what an SBAT was. I didn't know what a vet course looked like. So I guess with the EPP program, talking to students about what it actually is, like what is vet? What does it stand for? What it looks like practically? That was something that's really important for me, yeah.
I think you raise a really nice point there about sort of differences in some of our schools where the pursuit of vet is either something that's very strongly encouraged or perhaps something that in some spaces may perhaps be a little bit taboo. But I think there's a really great, in looking at the way Stella has presented her experience here, there's such a real, I would say, evidence of that success. Can you talk us through a little bit about what some of the experiences that you had in your relevant training, so some of the workplace experiences and those of those nature that have really helped you in your growth?
So I studied my course out the back of Concord Hospital. I had an amazing teacher who really encouraged me to just stick with it. I would say it's been a very interesting journey. When I graduated, I didn't end up going into nursing. I started a uni degree doing teaching and psychology. I completely changed it, and that was because I had a poor experience at a hospital where the nurses at Concord on my second placement said, "Don't be a nurse, you're going to hate it, the conditions are really bad," and that was what my whole entire second placement was right before I started studying, doing my HSC. So as a student who's about to do their HSC being told in their industry, "Don't do it, we hate it here," by all the nurses in my area was really, really quite difficult. But because I had that experience of doing my course in high school, I knew that I loved it. I just freaked out in year 12 and I ended up going a completely different path. But I was only at uni for 8 weeks, so then I dropped out and then went to TAFE to do my diploma of nursing. But for example, that's me. I've been in a situation where I know my industry, and I knew my industry in year 11 and year 12. And that is such a head start. So I didn't do my 4 years of teaching and be like, oh, maybe this isn't what I want. So I think one of the major benefits of vet courses is literally trying it all out. And I think that's the benefit of doing multiple as well. You get to put your foot into each industry, because I didn't know what I was doing. I was 16. I didn't know, still don't know what I'm doing, but I was 16 and I didn't know what the world looked like. So I definitely think being able to be nurtured by my teachers, I think teachers are amazing, being nurtured by my teachers in my vet course and having the ability to go to a hospital at age 16 and work with a patient is just phenomenal, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Stella.
So I was very late to my vet journey. I was the ripe old age of 40 when I did my certificate for in training and assessment. So I can remember being back at school and vet was not spoken about. I remember some boys in year 12 leaving a day a week or something to go and do something with their hands at TAFE, and it just wasn't spoken about in a positive light, 20-something years ago. So very late to the party. I spent my whole career, I went to uni for a year and absolutely despised it. I wanted to be in the workplace. Yeah, so I dove into retail. I spent 20 years building this huge career in retail and then lost my job throughout COVID. Became a stay-at-home mum. I've got young twins. And had nothing that said I could do what I knew I could do as a, over 40 mum. So I was went online, I was this used to be called Train the Trainer. Typed in Train the Trainer, and I found the certificate for in training and assessment. So dove in the middle of lockdown to a course which was terrifying as an adult. It was fee-free, thank goodness. It had been a long time since I had sat in a classroom environment, and it was a game changer. An absolute game changer. I had an incredible trainer, an absolute magician of a trainer who was just so inspiring and showed me that it's not too late. I'm not too old. All that workplace experience that I had counted for something and meant something, and I was still really relevant. So I went in that with my goal was to train retail because that was my whole history. And I'd had thousands. I was, prior to my children, I was national sales manager for the Billabong Group. I had 56 shops, hundreds and hundreds of staff members. I held so much work experience for all those kids coming through our doors. But I sat in that class and realised, actually, I now want to teach this. Yeah, so I went on to do 3 more qualifications. I used my RPL to get my business, to get my retail certificates, and then got my diploma of TAE. And went on to teach TAE, which I had never thought was on the cards for me. adult. So I won Vocational Student of the Year for New South Wales, and I can remember standing on that stage, and I just got my diploma to become a teacher. So to have that journey in such a short space of time from a student of vet to now a teacher of vet, the best decision I've ever made in my life.
I think one phrase that really resonated for me then, I'm sure it resonated for everyone, was this phrase, the game changer. And I think when we think about all the students who are in our care, and as a teacher myself, I think of the students who in year 11 and 12 are undertaking vocational education in their schools, in their school settings. They're on SBATs, they're in the classroom, but they're also pursuing their passions. It's a game changer for their sense of self-efficacy. It's a game changer for where they see themselves going. And I think you offer a really interesting perspective of coming into vet a little bit later. What message, though, do you think you'd have for a student, say, your younger self, in taking on a vet course?
You know, this is what I love about vet and why I've fallen so much in love with vocational education is it's that whole bookends. There's the youth in schools, but plus the older generation, and then someone like me, that stay-at-home mum in the middle. And vet sector can be a game changer for each of those. You know, my dad, my sister have just got their TAE. They now teach at TAFE. My mum just enrolled in her Certificate 3 in Visual Arts at the ripe old age of 74, and she's absolutely loving it. So if I was to go back and talk to myself when I was younger, give it a go. You don't have to love it, but try it. And if you don't like it, try something else. I remember coming home and telling my parents that I didn't want to go to university anymore. And that terrifying conversation of having to feel like I had failed at something. And looking back now, I'm like, that wasn't a fail. You tried it and you've got some feedback. You found something you didn't like, and that's awesome. Next, just keep moving forward. Yeah.
Really wise words. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Megan. Unlike the rest of the people here, I actually wanted to go to university. All throughout high school, I knew exactly what university I wanted to go to, the course, the ATAR I needed, and I was pretty much on that track until about halfway through year 12 when I had a chat with my careers advisor and she mentioned the idea of a traineeship. And initially I was like, I'm not really sure. Like, I already know what ATAR I need to get at university and I'm working towards that and I'm going to get that. But when I actually started looking about the company and reading about what PwC was and what they did and what it actually offered me, I thought, you know what, taking 2 years and spending a bit of time in the business and building up work experience and getting these 2 qualifications would actually be really beneficial for me in the future. And university was always going to be there. I was always going to have offers that were going to be sitting there. And if it didn't work out, at least that was another option for me. And whilst I studied IT, I must admit I did not want to pursue a career in IT. I was very much focused on 2 years in the business, 2 years of getting to build my skills, build my qualifications, because before this point, I'd been applying for retail jobs and like literally part-time jobs, and I'd been getting declines. People didn't want to hire someone who was in year 12 who wanted to work at McDonald's. They wanted someone who was young. And I wanted experience. And a traineeship offered me that kind of experience to get on the job. So as soon as I heard about it and did a little bit of research, I realised spending 2 years in this company is going to really set me up for the future. And it 100% has. And when I say, like, when people look at me and I say, like, I've done 2 IT degrees, they're like, really? Like, but you don't work in IT. And I was like, I know, but the skills that I've learnt through that qualification, I knew I was going to be able to use in whatever career I decided to pursue. And I have. I now work in HR and I use a lot of my data analytics and problem solving skills every single day. So I don't regret going through that pathway. And I know that in the end, like, if I decide in the future that I would like to go to do further study, university is an option, but TAFE is also an RTOs and all that world is still an option as well for me. So I think that in terms of my career, I didn't follow my passion, but I made a strategic decision on what was going to be better for me in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you, Megan. And you've just led us very nicely to our next point. And I really want to just get into the actual experience of undertaking an apprenticeship, a traineeship, and work-based training, Because whilst I think for many people in this room who may not have undertaken a vet course, let's get into thinking about what were the kinds of experiences that you had in those workplace training experiences. How did they equip you for your future? So I'm actually going to hand back to Megan, because you were just on that train of thought. Can you talk us through what you did in your traineeship, what you did in your work-based training that has set you up for what you have now?
I think the biggest thing for me was actually learning from people who were doing the job at that time. So for me, and I've said this multiple times, like as soon as a textbook is printed, like the information's already outdated. Whereas at least when I was learning from these people in the business, I was learning exactly what was coming in as it was happening. So I was always up to date on what the latest trends were, what the latest updates were in the industry, and I was able to practically go back to them and say, look, this is what I'm learning. Is this what's current? Like, do you think that I could improve my skills in any way in this area? Like, what advice do you have for me to build my skills based on your own journey within the industry? And so what I really enjoyed was being able to connect with the people that had gone from 15 years in the industry and being able to understand exactly what their career looked like, what their work looked like, and then also determining which aspects of the job I actually enjoyed. Like, I very much enjoyed working with the people and the stakeholder management side of things, and I enjoyed that analytical side, but there was also a big part of the job that I didn't exactly, like, I wasn't passionate about. And for me, the work placement aspect of it really established that in a real world setting. Like, it's very easy to say, like, look, I'm going to teach you about, coding and all these things to do with systems. But as soon as you actually see it in a real life sense, you work out, actually, this is not what I thought it would be. I don't actually really enjoy that. And that was really beneficial for me because it's helped me, as I continue to navigate my career, it's helped me work out what I like, what I don't like. And that is helping to, I guess, find a career that I really love.
Thanks, Megan. And if I come back over here to Bridie, just in terms of your workplace learning, any specific moments or examples or any specific placements where, you've engaged with particular skills or competencies that have equipped you for what you're now doing?
Well, I'm a firm believer that project management is one of the most transferable qualifications that you can do. You can pick that up and take it to any industry. And I think, as we referenced before in earlier presentations, the most vital skills you can learn are those soft skills. So I've always been privileged because I can talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles. So talking was never an issue for me. But it was that professional style communication that you're not born with. You don't just have it. So being able to develop my communication skills, my soft skills, all those interpersonal kind of interactions was really vital for me. And as I said, I'm a very firm believer in transferable skills, and I think that working in a diverse industry such as defence and maritime as well, I'm dealing with very different people all the time. I'm dealing with Commodores in the Navy. I'm dealing with people from different language backgrounds as well. And as someone from the Hunter Valley who never really had much experience with people from different backgrounds, different ethnic and different language backgrounds, it was a real learning curve. It was a real turning point to try and re-establish my ways of communicating. So those soft skills are what I feel is most transferable, and you just don't get that from university education. You really see a good focus in it in vocational education.
And the real building of that in your placement, so when you were in year 11 and 12, having that workplace experience in that particular time, preparing you for that sort of more formal workforce that you were going to be entered into.
Yeah, so when I was in year 11, so I did my work experience as a landscaper, and now here I am today. So it really helped me to understand what I didn't like. I thought that I wanted to break my back pulling out weeds for the rest of my life.
Not quite.
Not quite for me, and it's led me to where I am today. So I'm a huge advocate for work experience and work placements. I also did a Cert 2 doing construction pathways and you don't see me bricklaying every day. So, vet really opens your eyes up to the opportunities that are available. And as some of these ladies have said, it shows you what you love and it shows you what you don't love as well. So it's a very transformative time in your life. And finding out what you like and finding out what you don't like is just as important.
And Stella, can I just ask, from your perspective in thinking about your experiences, what were some of those soft skills, those skills that you've taken away from your work-based training? What are some of those benefits that you've taken out of there into your work now?
I think, although I've had some bad experience in my work placements, I think, especially working in healthcare, having patient interactions and it not just being, okay, this is how you talk to a patient. This is how you sit there and you empathise with someone who's at the most vulnerable spot in their life at that moment. I think definitely communication. That's just a standard one, but you really do learn how to communicate the way you need to be communicating in your industry. And just the confidence. I think confidence is such a big thing where I walked into that hospital when I was 16 and now walked into North Shore Private in the cardiac ward at the beginning of the year, how I can walk in with confidence because I've walked through that already. I think I would say patient interaction is definitely, that would be top for me, yeah.
And so coming back to that real explicit engagement with those skills that you're passionate about and what's driving you. Casey, if I can come over to you as well, so from a slightly different lens, how did your experience capitalise on the skills that you'd already learned? And tell us a little bit about that impact that you're now having.
So I guess for my life, I've been on the work placement end where I've run a retail business and I've had all those kids coming in to work. So the things that we've tried in the workplace to instill in them, that term soft skills, I absolutely detest it. There's nothing soft about them. They are hard skills. I think we're still learning them. At 43, I'm still trying to figure it out. So even as turning up on time, how to dress properly, how to greet someone, body language, how to get that smile on your face when you're hungover and you just don't want to. We're teaching them those skills from the minute they step foot on that shop floor. It was, you're not John Smith now, you're now an employee and you're representing this brand, and what does that look like? And how do we do that when we don't want to do that? So all those skills, communication, it's such a broad term, but it's that interpersonal, to be able to connect with another human being with compassion, with empathy, with understanding, to bring that, that was my goal in retail, just to help create better humans on the shop floor. So then to come into a classroom and be surrounded by other adults from all sorts of industries doing their TAE who are all trying to do the same thing. That's really powerful. So we now get a chance. So I teach the TAE at community colleges, and with TAFE New South Wales, I lead their Paid to Learn program for the TAE. So it's one of the strategies to mitigate that workforce shortage, where in areas where we're desperate for teachers, those construction areas, the electrical trades, renewable energy, all these places, they come on board and do an intense program to get through their TAE so they can go on and teach. And it's really inspiring, even as adults, to be showing them, because when you're a teacher, you have to demonstrate what it looks like. From the minute you walk in that classroom, you're demonstrating what actions you want them to bring to the table. So what I learnt in retail is still coming to the fore every day in that classroom, which is really powerful.
I think a really good story of, experience and now giving back as well, which is such a valuable experience in this space. Stella, I just want to come back to you for a moment because I'm just going to direct a few questions individually to the panel, because I think you've raised something that came up earlier, and we did address it a little bit, where you experienced perhaps a bit of resistance to your desire to undertake vet. And I think you're probably in the best position to answer this question. You noted before that you kind of had to navigate your path. You had to find your way. Could you talk us through what that looked like for you at that time, with a focus on what resources, information, support systems, networks are available for students who may be in your situation, or for other individuals who may not necessarily know where to go?
So I picked all my subjects in Year 10, as you do, and I had always seen myself in nursing. I've been a young carer since practically my whole life, since the age of 3. So I've grown up in an area where I have had that empathy, and I was thinking, how am I transferring this into my career? And it was maybe a careers expo kind of thing in my school hall, subject selection night, and I saw that there was a little tiny little table with a little like A4 piece of paper that had the things that were offered at my school, which were very, very little. I think maybe there was 10 students in my almost year of 200 who did a vet course, so it wasn't very popular. But the resistance I had was from teachers. The resistance I had was even in some ways from my mum and the people around me. You got to go to uni. So I struggled with that because I was like, okay, I'll take this vet course and I'll go to uni. I'm now at TAFE, so, things change. But I think having a good careers advisor genuinely is what can make or break it. Having a person in the school who is known for being able to provide all that information, being able to ask a question to that person and them know the answer, that's very, very important, as well as different options. I think also the availability of things that are offered. So I went to a school in Strathfield. In the inner west, there's lots of things around me, yet there was only 2 or 3 vet courses that were offered. I don't even think SBAT was an option. So I think definitely the careers advisor and just having more conversations about it at school and not have it to be such a taboo thing. Me doing a vet course was just as important as my friend who was taking extension maths. I think getting rid of that taboo of taking a vet course.
And I think there's the challenge for all of us. I think looking at being that person who knows what options are available, but also knowing the students who are in our care and being known to them as well, that we are able to direct them. If I can go down the end to Megan, you noted you did a traineeship. Can you talk us through what did that look like with PwC? How was it structured? What were the requirements? Talk us through a couple of day-to-day experiences.
Yep. So my traineeship was across 2 years. So it was part of a program called the Higher Apprenticeship Program. And so in the first year, it was just studying the Certificate 4 in IT. And then on the second year, we did the diploma in IT. And we actually did, the way it was structured was we did 4 days on the job and then 1 day in TAFE. So we actually brought our TAFE instructor into the business because we had around 15 trainees that were all doing it at the same time in the same business. So we literally had our TAFE teacher come in. It was like a fully designed course just for our particular cohort of people. So what was really kind of stressful was the fact that we pretty much did a qualification within 30 days. So 30 days across the entire year, which was a lot of time when you had to navigate both. You had all your work commitments, but you also had all your study commitments as well. What was really good was that we got given 12 hours of study leave to use every month. So we were able to take off different afternoons when we needed to get our assignments done, which was very beneficial. And then the diploma was supposed to be 36 months long, but again, we did it in 30 days. And a lot of that was because all of the units that we had done, we carried over to the diploma and we got the recognition for that already. To be honest, it doesn't feel like I have those qualifications because it was so integrated with my on-the-job on-the-job work, which in sense is really great. So the fact that it was kind of really well combined and the way that we were able to work and study and it all seamlessly integrated was definitely one of the benefits of going through this program. And then my employer also covered the cost of my qualification, all of our study materials, and the fact that we had one dedicated teacher for us the entire time that we had to go to, that was also really beneficial for us.
Thanks very much. And if I can ask Bridie, let's think about futures. What what has studying or being a part of a vet course, a traineeship, an apprenticeship, what has that opened up for futures for you? I know we spoke about your project management experience. Where to from here?
So I'm very privileged to have completed my traineeship. As I said before, I relocated. It was a massive risk, but it was the best decision I ever made. As Casey said before, these opportunities don't come up very often. But when you take that leap of faith, it is the best choice you could have made. So I'm very privileged to have so many great network connections, and my experience with the New South Wales Department of Education and the EPP program has really accelerated my love for vocational education and has actually seen me go on to develop a program targeted at students from disadvantaged backgrounds or students that are disengaged in New South Wales high schools. And teaching them about employability and domestic skills. So I acknowledge that not all kids have a solid family or solid support network. So acknowledging that they don't have that, it's starting to build their confidence and trying to build their confidence in themselves and prove to themselves that they don't have to be a product of what their family is, or they don't have to be a product of the environment around them. So that's a 6-week course that's carried out in New South Wales high schools from 2025, and it's gaining a lot of interest, which is really exciting. And it's co-created alongside high school students as well as industry professionals, so that I can understand exactly what they need and what they want. Because I'm going around to schools for EPP visits, and even though they may not seem interested in what you're there to talk about, they'll message you on Instagram a little bit later in the afternoon and say, hey miss, how can I get work experience? How can I get into an apprenticeship? How can I get into a traineeship? So if VET can open up all these doors for me, little old me who moved from the Hunter Valley at 17, it can happen for anyone. So I want to be a part of the cohort that continues to inspire high school students and job seekers all around.
And what a wonderful part of your role as a training ambassador as well. I think that deserves a round of applause. I think that's really, and I think as we just spoke about that idea of giving back, that idea of empowering the next cohort to come through and take these opportunities. Casey, I'm just going to come to a question with you, because you did mention obviously the impact that COVID had on you and your circumstance, and how that almost forced you to retrain or to look for something else. And we know that vet qualifications are fast and cost-effective ways to employment. How have you seen that played out in your own experience, but also with the individuals that you're working with now?
I wouldn't have done the course if it hadn't been free. I was so nervous calling. Being a stay-at-home mum and having your partner as the breadwinner when you'd been career-focused your whole life, that's hard. So to then say, oh, I'm unemployed and now I want to do a $5,000 course is a hard conversation. That's a bit of pill to swallow a little bit. So I can still remember calling my community college and asking about it, and nervously asking how much is it going to cost. And it was pre-Smart and Skilled, it was the COVID funding, but she said it's free. And I had to say, so like the textbooks are free? And they're like, the whole thing, you can start on Friday. And I cried because I would not have been able to do it if it hadn't have been funded. So I'm a huge advocate. I do a lot of work with the Smart and Skilled classes. And so even my role in TAFE now, the people who sit in my class, my class just graduated last week with their TAE, all tradies from 28 up to 60 in my class, and they wouldn't have done this if TAFE hadn't paid for it, if it wasn't free for them. So I've got these people who are suddenly able to pivot their careers, find their, the youngest one, she wants to become a mum, so she's trying to go, I'm a chippy by trade. Where do I take that? Where do I find that balance? And then I've got someone at 60 who's a sparky and going, well, what do I do next? And they're not in a position necessarily to pay for it or to take the time out. They've got family, they've got kids, they've got life, they've got jobs and businesses and things going on. So to have it funded and have it free makes it so much more accessible to all walks of life. And the fact is I wouldn't have done it if that hadn't been the case.
And it's a great leveler, isn't it, really? It's allowing that universality of training and growth for everyone, regardless of context.
That I say it to all my students, that door is not a barrier to anyone coming in, whether it's funding, whether it's foundation skills, whether it's whatever is happening for them. That door should never be a barrier to someone entering your classroom. So, these guys that just graduated last week, they're now going on to teach apprentices and trainees, fresh out of school, chippies and sparkies and builders, and they're now part of it. Yeah, it's all about giving back. It's an absolute privilege to be a part of.
And I think before we open up to the audience for some questions this afternoon, I'm sure there will be some questions about your experiences and what we can learn from that. I'd like to just pass, if we can just go back down to Megan. We'll work our way back up. Bridie's given us a really good insight into her role as a training ambassador. But before we finish up, I'd like to hear from the remainder of the panel. What have you been doing? What's your role as a training ambassador? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yep, so I actually won my award back in 2021, so I've been an ambassador just for probably a couple years longer than the rest of us here. For mainly the year after you win, you're really just used everywhere, like every promotional material at every single award, you'll find your face everywhere. People will come up to you, they'll be like, oh my God, you're on that poster. And I'm like, yes, thank you.
No royalties.
No.
Okay, just
so that following year was really the biggest for me in terms of like being invited to conferences, different events. That was when the EPP program was the EPP program. It was still in the pilot. And so we were really trying to go out to schools and really sell the idea of not only this program, but the idea of us ambassadors promoting it to the students. So that 2022, I was really heavily involved in schools. I think I added it up and it was I spoke to around 2,500 people, including all the events and conferences and schools that I'd been to. So for me, that was a huge year in terms of impact. And then ever since then, we obviously have new ambassadors that come in. They're fresh and new, got their own new stories to talk about. But still, there's still lots of involvement with schools. And even just outside the department system, I love volunteering. I am part of a couple of networks. I actually went to a networking lunch on last Wednesday, and that was for trying to inspire young women into STEM. And even though I don't work in STEM anymore, like my journey and that kind of initial experience is still something that I can use as a story to inspire the next generation. So for me, how I look as an ambassador, the role has definitely evolved, but it really just depends on how passionate you are about giving back and how much you really want to inspire the next generation.
Wonderful. Might come to Stella.
I am a big believer in, at least for myself, I can always be doing more. And I always want to take another step out and say yes to this or say yes to that. I've had a really big year in terms of health. I've gone through a lot of health issues in the last 6 months. So I've had to kind of take a step back. But like Megan was saying, that first year out, it's like, it's all full force forward. But definitely with the Educational Pathways program, being able to stand in front of a class or a group of students who they can see themselves in you, I really, really do love that. Finishing my diploma, finishing my study, and just working. That's where I'm at right now as a student. But definitely keeping up with the Educational Pathways program and continuing to do things like these as a Training Awards ambassador is just being able to talk about education and how many things you can do and how many pathways there are, that it's not just this little box that you can sit in, that when you're in year 11 and 12, you graduate, you do this or you do that, and that's it. There are so many, like, it's not linear at all. And that's, something I'm very passionate about. Yeah.
A great way to put it. Bridie, would you like to add anything else to your ambassadorship? What else have you been doing?
So obviously I've just been doing my work within the defence and maritime industry, but am transitioning towards working within the vocational education space full time. And I'm just constantly on the lookout for different ways that we can support young people, job seekers, and people that are transitioning industries as well. So working alongside great people in the EPP program is really a privilege because, as these guys said, this is the first year out for me, so I'm seeing my face on a confronting amount of posters, and like I'll open up, oh God, there I am again. Yeah, it really hits you in the face. Sometimes it's like not even before 9 o'clock in the morning. It's too confronting. Yeah, there I am. Oh. But it's been such a privilege and a great opportunity. And to be able to network at events like this today, I'm really connecting with a bunch of like-minded people, which is something so special to me, especially coming from a school that didn't encourage vet. I set up an SBAT with an employer, did all my paperwork, and my careers advisor literally said no. So to be able to sit in a room of like-minded people that I know would continue to inspire young people into the vet pathway is such a privilege.
Wonderful, and I think that's a really good message for us, the idea of just keep trying. And finally, Casey, any insights from your time as an ambassador?
Yeah, look, I was the oldest in my cohort of winners that year. And that first year was full on, but it's been an absolute springboard. And I just remember one event out of the many, many events, but hearing Sue talk from Lismore, my family's up there, and obviously the floods and everything that happened up there. And I did a lot of work volunteering up there with the flood recovery. And through the Training Awards Ambassador, I was able to go up there and speak to I think it was about 400 of the high school students from the Northern Rivers who'd been flood affected, and they were all being bussed out to different schools and, you know, just trying to find clothes to wear that day and find breakfast for the day, you know. And so to be able to, we talk about that giving back. So the Training Awards Ambassador meant that they knew I had connections with Lismore, and they said, do you want to do this? And I was like, oh, yes. Got to go up there and speak to these 400 plus high school students who had lost everything from Nimbin and, you know, all around the area, and give them a bit of hope through vocational education. So that was a real defining moment of me, that full circle moment. And the training, it just continues, and we get to keep having these really fantastic conversations.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to our panel. And could I ask if anyone in the audience has a question or anything I'd like to add or ask of our panellists this afternoon before we wrap up? Is there a roving mic?
You've all been very patient staying till the end.
I think you've kind of just summarised it all for them. Wonderful. Well, it seems like we don't have any further questions. So if we wrap and tie up, I think what we take away from this really engaging conversation this afternoon is the potential for vocational education to be a game changer for our students. Fundamentally, it is about ensuring that all of our students, regardless of abilities, regardless of their direction, regardless of passions, are entitled to the idea of growing in a career space that excites and engages them, and are afforded that dignity to go out into the workforce and to participate and contribute to society. And I think we've seen 4 exemplary models of this today, where VET has had a truly profound impact, not just on one's work situation, but has actually been a life-changing experience, and has actually empowered these women that we've seen before us to take charge of their passions, to walk into the workforce as skilled professionals and practitioners who are ready to take that next step. So on behalf of the audience, I thank you very much, and a round of applause for our panellists, Bridie, Stella, Casey and Megan.